Monday. I do it twice a month on a Monday. I invite authors into my home. We talk about reading, writing, and life as an author. And this evening, Rachel Valencourt is joining me. How are you this evening, my dear?
I'm doing fabulous, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everyone who's logging on, tuning in, whatever we call it these days. I would say tuning in.
Tuning in, I like that. I like that, tuning in. Before we get started, I'm looking at your covers of your books, and they are fabulous. We're going to talk about your books in just a minute. But before we get started, can you just give us a little background to yourself? Anything you feel comfortable sharing with the rest of the world?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I'm a former flight attendant. I've been writing my whole life. I wrote stories ever since I could write. As soon as I could pick up a pencil, I was writing stories. I've had blogs for many years, and I just never was very confident about publishing my actual stories until my grandmother pushed me into it. She wanted me to write her life story. And once I did that, a lot of people wanted to read it more than my family. And so my books are based and inspired by real people and real things, turned into a fictionalized version.
I love that. Now, kudos to your grandmother, number one, for pushing you, because you wouldn't be where you are today. Is the book published that you wrote about your grandmother?
Yes. Hmm.
It is. And what is the title of that one? I know I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but
Well,
I'm just curious. Which
that's
one's
my
it?
debut novel, Every Night Has a Dawn. And
Oh,
you mentioned my covers, and this is actually a reimagined photograph of my grandmother when she was 16.
so that book is actually based on her life.
It's inspired by her life, and it's mostly true. But there were some times I had to condense or combine a few things just for the flow, keep it keep it a good length.
What a fabulous way to get started. Kudos to you.
Yes.
Is your grandmother still alive?
No, she passed away. So she was actually on hospice, and I was going over and visiting her quite often. And she one day when I got there, she said, "I want you to go up into that closet and get that box down for me." And I was like, okay. And she kind of had like a glint in her eye. She was a real fun lady. And I got it down, and it had all of these letters from World War II, old photographs, even like her ration stamps, letters from her brother who had gone, she had two brothers drafted to World War II. And it just was a plethora of information, her life story, everything, newspaper articles, things she cherished and thought were important in her life, and a lot of writing. She had some journal entries, and she just said, "I want you to take all of this and turn it into a story of my life." And she was about 90 years old at the time, and she had lived, born in 1927, and she had lived up to that point 91 years. And that's a lot of change. Her mother didn't have the right to vote. She was born the same year like penicillin was invented. I believe she was born the same year as the Queen of England. And so there was just so many changes, so many things that she saw in her life.
Right.
And I just wanted to get it all down and just see it write a story from the eyes of a child growing up with all these changes, and a female child, because things weren't always easy for females. We couldn't vote. You had to ask for your husband's permission to get a bank account. There are all these things. And how did my grandmother become to be the person she was, pushing back against all these things that she had been through in her life? And it was quite fascinating. I got to know her on a whole different level.
Yeah, I'm fascinated just listening to it. I love historical fiction, number one, but also your grandmother is around World War II. She experienced World War II.
Yes, she was around for World War II. And the interesting part of her story was that she was born in the Depression era, and her family were displaced from their home. And they ended up becoming migrant farm workers in the state of Washington in the Pacific Northwest. And that's a really rainy, cold environment. And there were times they didn't have anywhere to live, that they were living, out of their truck and tents and things of that nature. And her dad had an idea. He heard there was some logging work going up in Nia Bay, and there's a reservation there of whale hunters. And so he had this idea of going up there to get work and maybe seeing if the whale hunters had any accommodations that they could stay at. And so this was shortly after the Spanish flu. And so my family went up there, and this was treacherous. There weren't a lot of roads to get to this place. It was very remote. I've since been there. It's still a very remote place. So I can only imagine 100 years ago how remote it was. And they got up there, and the tribes people wouldn't talk to them at first because they were nervous about the Spanish flu. And it was kind of like
Oh,
very reminiscent to like COVID, and like people, how some people were cautious about wanting to like see somebody you didn't know or didn't know
yeah.
where they'd been, or if somebody just flew in or was just at a hospital. Some people were a little in the beginning like, oh, I don't want to go around that person. So the the tribes people waited a few days to make sure everyone in the party was well before they were able to get an audience with the chief. And he was able to secure accommodations in one of their cabins. And the next day, my great grandfather, went off to find logging work, and he was able to get logging work. And they ended up staying on the reservation for 2 years.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and they were Caucasian, mostly English ancestry family. And I just thought that kind of like reverse story of somebody going and asking the Native American people who weren't always treated the best,
Right.
by, you know, Caucasian American people, and how they're called the Macaw tribe, how they helped my family during this time. And they were also poor, but they taught my grandmother and my great grandmother how to like get food from the ocean and just so many things. And it was actually like the happiest time in her life. She didn't know that she was poor, and she didn't even know that the Great Depression was really going on, or didn't understand it till years later. Looking back, she realized how poor they really were, but she was happy and she didn't feel poor. So I just thought there was something very beautiful about that, and it should be shared with the world.
I love that because they say, you don't miss what you don't have or never had. And
Hmm.
your grandmother's a perfect example. What a beautiful story. I know that you said that your grandmother was on hospice. When she pointed to the box, I have to ask though, did she happen to read the book or see the book?
No, and that's part of why I put the book into a fiction genre, because I did finish like the first three or so chapters, and I was going back and interviewing her and asking her like, "Oh, so you were apple picking, in this area. How did you get to this area?" And so would go back and interview her, because there were, she had notes and things, but it wasn't all laid out in an outline. It was just like, through the last 50 or 60 years of her life, she jotted things down when they had come to her. So it wasn't really in like any kind of organized manner. It almost looked like maybe she dropped the box at one point and just everything was picked up and thrown back in the box. So it was quite a task. And so I had to keep going back, and I would read her certain parts, and then she would correct me and, let me know. And, this is firsthand witness to
Yeah,
World War II
she,
and the Great
she was
Depression. And,
involved. She
you
was
know,
totally involved. And what a beautiful gift for your family. I mean, your parents, are they around? Did they read the book? That's their mom. So yeah.
they are around. So originally, I have a bombshell for you.
Okay.
While I was writing this story and this whole thing was going on with my grandmother's end of life, her, last days of living, my husband had bought me a DNA kit for surprise for my birthday.
Okay.
So all of a sudden we found out that what we thought was our ancestry, there was actually a different. Basically, my grandfather that raised my mother was not her biological father.
Oh wow.
And so this all came out at the same time while I was writing my grandmother's story. So I had to go back to my grandmother and say, you know, I had this DNA test done more for like just fun and like doing family trees and research and figuring out my ethnicity exactly, because I'm a true American mutt, like a lot of different things. And I just wanted to see exactly what everything was. And I had to go and ask her about this. And it was true. My mother was actually the daughter of the town barber. And so I said, Grandmother, you left out a huge part of the story here. You're asking me to write your story, and I'm the only grandchild from that man. And I think it was her way of like wanting the secret to come out. It was a secret she kept for 60 years. And
Wow.
so this book, the first half is mostly about World War II and her life growing up and what kind of formed and shaped her. And then the second half is her married life and becoming a mother and all the things that led to the reasoning for her having this other child and keeping the secret for so long.
Did your
And
mother
so,
know? Did your mother know about your grandmother's secret?
no, no,
Wow,
she didn't
that's
know. And
heavy.
it was very heavy, and it was just, I just kept writing. It was just
What can you
like I thought,
do? Yeah,
what can you do? So I just thought I'm just gonna write this all down, write all my feelings down. But really, I want, and in the beginning, I kind of was writing it from a more like, how could she keep this secret? Like we were so close. I feel like I was the closest grandchild to her, and how could she keep this secret from me? And I was kind of writing it a little bit more like getting out my anger and issues. And then I put it away for a long time after she passed away. And when I just something during COVID got under my skin where I just couldn't sleep. I was waking up at night. I would dream about my grandmother. I would dream different things, and I would wake up at like 1 in the morning, and I was just like in a trance. Just the words were just flying on my fingers like sparks, and
wow.
I couldn't hold the story in any longer. But this time I was coming from more of a place of my grandmother was in this situation, and um, why did she feel she had to keep this secret? Why a woman in the 1960s would they need to keep the secret? Where was she at? What was her mental space at that time of how she went to this other man? And their marriage, my grandmother and grandfather's marriage was breaking up. She had another love affair. And just a lot of things happened at that time. And in the 60s, you didn't talk about
You
this.
didn't, and I think shame might have held heavy on her too. Back in those days, in the 60s, where
Mhm.
mom stays at home, dad goes out to work, and when I think of the 60s, I think of programs like Leave It to Beaver and all these
Yes.
good moms at home. Maybe shame has it. I mean, I can't speak for your grandmother, but my first
Yeah,
sure was shame.
it was shameful. I think at that time it was society looked at, somebody. We didn't talk about blended families. If you had a child from a different person, or
Yeah.
even sometimes you would be a widower and you'd marry a new man and you already had children, people didn't talk about this was a half brother, I
Yeah.
don't think it was looked at that way until maybe more till like the 1990s. It started, or 80s, it started to change. So
Yeah.
I just thought it was very like I was coming more from a place of trying to understand her as a woman and why she felt the need to, keep the secret, and then how she went about asking me to write the story, and it just all came together.
I believe what you said. It was her way of getting the secret out. Like you said, she's held it for so long. It was probably
Mm-hmm.
driving her crazy. How could she tell the family? And as more time progressed, it's like how can she tell this? And I think how she did it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, it was very interesting. And now, it was like painful to find out, for my mom to find out. And it was a painful and hard time for the whole family because my mom's one of six. And then my mom had this whole other side of the family that she didn't know.
Mhm.
And her dad was still alive. Her birth father was still alive, and her mother, my grandmother, was still alive. And within a short period of time, they had both passed away after us finding this out. So I truly believe it was something that was meant to
It was meant
happen.
to, it was meant to be. I truly believe it too, just from the story you told us. I do want to pause for a minute. I am fascinated by your story. I just want to give some recognition to our readers, see who is joining us. Again, I am talking to Rachel Valencourt. Fabulous, fabulous outline to her book, Winds of Change. If you have any questions for her, go ahead and put them up on the screen. I'm going to pop up some names and see who is joining us. We have Janet is here. She says hello. I'm just going to go down the
Hi,
line
Jen.
here. We have Elaine Sapp. She says hello.
I know,
Virgie,
Elaine.
you probably know quite a few of these people. Virgie Lane is here. She says hello. We got Carol News. She says hello. And then Carol News, sorry. And then Karen Geeling. I'm popping up some comments about your book already. Virgie says awesome cover. Laura Whitney says, I love it. I'm just going to a few more. Let's go down here. This is a
We're
nice.
a strong book community on Facebook, and I love it. It's
We
very
are.
supportive.
I love this community. And my surprise when I first started writing was how huge it is. I mean, I've just touched a little bit of it, but it is huge. It is a huge, huge community. And not just on Facebook, but across all platforms. No matter which
Mhm.
platform you go, it is a huge, huge community. And I've met so many fabulous people, authors, readers, just great, great people. Janet says, I have your book on my TBR pile. Looking forward to reading it. And
Ooh.
then Karen says, I loved your first 2 books. I need to read the 3rd one.
Yes, you do.
And then we have Laurel says, what a treasure. Carol has read your book. She says, loved all your books. Cassandra Joan is joining us. A few more. Let's see what we got there. Colleen Rose is here. I hate missing anybody out. I appreciate them coming on for an hour and hanging out with us. Debbie says hello. Barbara Miller is here from Florida. Lori Chasco says hello. Yay! We've got some questions. I want to pop those up in a minute. From YouTube, we have, I read books. I like write books. She'd like to write books one day. Never give up, right? Never give up.
And even if it's just 10 minutes a day that you're writing, just every day, set aside time and do it. And then eventually you have a whole book
to write. Just write until it stopped, and then go back another day. I never ever force myself to write. If it's not there, if I try to force it, it doesn't sound natural, doesn't feel real. So if it's just a few hundred words, I'll come back later in the day. I do.
Even if I don't write one thing, at least I sat down and looked at my notes and thought about what I want to write next, and kind of, and if nothing's flowing and I can't get anything to go, I come back the next day. And eventually, hopefully you don't have too many days where it's not flowing.
No, I don't. I try to write every single day, Monday through Friday, and then weekends I leave optional. But I try to do it every single day. Question from Laura. You're a new author to me. Have you or would you ever write about your airline experience? Before we answer this question, though, can you just give a little background about that? How long you were airline? I'm assuming you're an airline stewardess or something?
Yes, I was an airline stewardess, flight attendant, air hostess. I think we all have different names for it, depending on how old you are, what country you're from. So when I was doing it, we called them flight attendants, and I did that for a year, and it was I was gone too much, and I loved to travel, and I wanted to do that career to travel. So I switched over from being a flight attendant to being a travel agent. And so I was a travel agent for several years. So I have a lot of travel experience, and I've done a lot of traveling. I've lived in Australia and England, and I do actually, so my trilogy, the Winds of Change trilogy, is obviously 3 books, and they're each about a different person. So the second book is inspired by the life of my mother. And that's actually, it's a reimagined photo of my mother. Mm-hmm. And it's more of the 70s and 80s. And a lot of things that happened within our family, because it was once I wrote my grandmother's story, it was very interesting how there were a lot of things that were repeated in my mother's life that she didn't know about. My grandmother's childhood and some of the things that happened in my grandmother's marriage, my mother didn't know about. And there were some patterns that often in families, we repeat patterns. So it was just very interesting. So I went ahead and wrote about my mother's life. Her brother, when she was about 13 years old, her brother was drafted to the Vietnam War. And I wrote kind of the perspective of the family at home and what they go through when you have a family member going off, to war, essentially. And so there's just a lot of exciting things that, I love the 70s. I feel like the
70s,
if I'm going to time travel or live in another area, it would be the 70s. I love the music, the styles. It just felt like a little more simpler times.
Much simpler.
I immersed myself in that era.
Yeah, I loved it. I love growing up, and I tell my husband often, I am so thankful I grew up in that era. I mean, I say to myself, my son is almost 40, but it's like he's like the last generation of where, I hate to say it, had a childhood where they could have some freedom.
Yeah, without the phones and being tracked everywhere and social media. My third novel, this is me when I was younger.
That's what I was waiting for.
So it goes into my life as a flight attendant and some of my travels. And my husband's from England, how we met. And it's just, at least just a little more 50-50, a little more, a lot of things in our life, but also, condensed, because when you're writing a story, you need to make it interesting. You can't put everything in there.
Yeah, so you put in there. And I love this because this is your debut trilogy. Yes. And you cover 3 generations in this debut trilogy, which I think is fantastic. My debut trilogy was about my life. This was Reckless Beginnings. is the book 1 of my trilogy, and I absolutely love that we had that in common. That you
Yes,
took.
and I love your covers. I always think your covers are so beautiful and so compelling. They just
Thank you so much.
stand
But
out.
I just love that we have it in common. So this is the trilogy based on, I'm going to say, your family's life. What's going to be next?
So while I was doing, because I love historical fiction, I love research, and I love all of, the bygone eras, while I was doing my family tree, I found this family member, and her name was Captivity. And I studied journalism in school, and so when I saw this person's name is Captivity, I thought there's a story behind this person. It's an interesting last name. And so I don't have the cover mock-up here, but it's called Captive Before Dawn. So it's going to be a prequel to my first book. Captive Before Dawn is the name. And so this lady, this great grandmother, while her mother was pregnant, they were kidnapped by Native Americans and trekked up to Canada, and the husbands had to like fight to get them back. And the basis, it's very well documented in colonial times. And these first eyewitness accounts of being kidnapped and trekked up to Canada and all these things inspired, or I would say, I don't know if it inspired him, but James Fenimore Cooper, he wrote having a glitch. He wrote The Last of the Mohicans. He used some of these eyewitness accounts for when he wrote his novel. So his novels, some based on different people and different things, but he took these stories to kind of illustrate what it's like to be kidnapped by Native Americans and that whole thing. So I'm going to write the real version of events of what happened to my ancestor.
Fascinating.
It's very fascinating. This one's further back in time for me, and I don't have people alive to speak to about it. So this one's proving for me to be more challenging with the research and staying, this is more in like the 1700s. And so this one's taking me longer. This is a lot.
Quite a bit. And do you think you'll stay with historical fiction as far as your future writing?
I love it so much. It's always been my favorite genre to read and write. But I also like romantasy, and like one of my favorite authors is Anne Rice. So I love all of like those kind of books as well. So I have some ideas.
You never know. See, I love you just answered Laurie's question. She put, were you always interested in history? Because your books are historical fiction. I love reading historical fiction. I would never write it, and it's because the research scares me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this many times with other authors that write historical fiction, but you have to be spot on when it comes to that research, especially like all of it. World War II, you're going to go to the 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the research scares me. So,
I've had people question me certain things. Like in one of my books, the husband wasn't in the delivery room when the woman was having her child. And I had somebody email me and say, "Oh no, men were in the 80s or in the 70s, men were in the delivery room." And I said, "No, they weren't, because my dad wasn't in my delivery room." And so I mean maybe it's different in different countries. I don't know, but for me, these three were fairly easy because it's a lot of time that I've lived.
It's your family too.
It's
And
my family and the time I've lived in, and then I could always go back and ask older relatives of mine, like, "Oh, how was this? Or was this around?" Or,
yeah.
And I grew up on these stories. So
Right.
these all flowed and were very natural, but going back to the 1700s is hard.
It's going to be fascinating, though. I bet you're going to find all kinds of things.
I think I already am. I already find it very fascinating. But I think I'm taking my time with it so that I know there are a lot of history buffs out there that if I get something wrong, I don't want to be called out. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, my first thought is, what wardrobe would they wear? You have to look up the clothing, and
yes.
I know you do a fabulous job. I will. Back to your books. A question from Colleen. She says, "Did you meet the father?"
Well, I feel like I don't want to give too much. Do we give spoilers?
Away,
do we want to give spoiler alerts, or do we not want to give spoilers?
No, I wouldn't give any spoilers. Just say read the book.
You're gonna have to read the book to find that one out.
Find out. That's what I would say. Definitely. You said that you lived in England for a while, and your husband is English.
Yes.
I'm from England. That's where I grew up.
Yes.
What part of England did you live in?
So I lived in Nottingham.
No. Okay.
And I could see the castle from my bathroom window.
Oh,
And we lived in a little flat, a little tiny flat. And if you leaned over just right out the window, you could see just a little corner of the castle. So I love England. I've always loved everything English, and
even the food? English
I
food.
like the food. I think the food.
My husband can't. I bring up some weird recipes to my husband. Like, how can you eat that? You know, he says he'd live off tuna fish if we went to England. But
We make shepherd's pie and bangers and mash, and I know it. I think the food over there is fresh. It usually like people tend to eat seasonally, and my experience was very good, but I didn't live in London, so I don't know in London if it's different, but where we lived in the
it's not the same. It's about. I mean, I lived up north in Yorkshire, in actually
Mhm.
West Yorkshire, but it's all the same. But I was in England back in the day when you got fish and chips wrapped in actual newspaper. I mean,
Mhm.
the print and everything on it. That was when I lived there, and then they, you know, changed it to just plain paper and took away that nostalgia of fish and chips.
Yeah, I've
I
had it in the
do.
newspaper wrapping. They were still doing that when
It
I
was,
lived there.
yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, British food. I mean, Scotch eggs. You ever had Scotch eggs?
Yes, we make Scotch eggs. We cook everything. We make sausage rolls, and we have Marmite. So my daughters are raised in a very with a lot of their British culture.
High culture household there. Yeah. One thing
I
I
would
miss, and I can't find it in the US, is pork pies. I
No, we don't tend to have those, and I haven't attempted to make them, but my
I
husband loves those.
I love those, but I've never found it, and I'm like you, I've never attempted to make them either. But what years were you in England?
I was over there in the early 2000s, and that's in part of, there's a little bit of that in my third book, a little bit of my time in England, and I also lived in Australia and New Zealand, and we did a whole backpacking gap year. So I had 18 months where I saved my money, and then my husband and I, we were, it was before we were married. We went and I got working holiday visas for Australia, and we both worked over there for about 6 months, and then we traveled, made more money, and then traveled more through Southeast Asia. And
Wow, you've seen quite a bit. And Australia has a lot of food like English food. They do.
very similar. I would say New Zealand was more so, more
Okay.
British.
Okay.
But Australia also, they like their meat pies and all of those things. But I felt like Australia was kind of like a blend of English and American. It felt very like California to me in Australia. I don't know
Really?
if other people who have lived there had that kind of experience, but they had a lot of American culture in Australia as well as British. Um, where New Zealand seemed like it was more British culture than any American influence.
Interesting. Interesting. Do you think you'll ever go back to England or Australia, New Zealand?
Well, I have my I still have my husband's parents in England, so we do go back.
Okay.
We try to go every year or every other year. My daughter, now that she's graduated high school, she wants to study abroad and study in England.
Oh, good for her.
Um,
Your daughter, has she read your books?
yes, so everybody has read my first book, and they're making their way through the other two.
What a great gift for your kids. I mean, that's just family history right there. And Lori is asking, she would like to know, did your grandmother tell you other stories that may lead to future books?
So my grandmother's sister was married to one of the Doolittle Rangers. And he was involved in that whole attack after Pearl Harbor when America like kind of had their um, response to Pearl Harbor. He had crash landed into China and trekked back
Oh,
to
wow.
America. And so there's a whole. I'm trying to work on a free one, like kind of a magnet with that
Okay.
story of
Great.
their love story, basically,
That
because
is
it's quite. I mean, it was just such unique and amazing times of how,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
how everything fate kind of intervened in all of their lives.
I think it's brilliant. And then Jessica, she says, I've read all three and I'm ready for book four.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
ready for it too.
Do
And
you
I'm
have
sorry.
any kind of a time frame on the next book? Share what you want to share because I know you're still writing it, but for example, do you have a title, a time frame, a release date, whatever you want to share about the book you're
I
working
do
on?
not have a release date. I had originally wanted to release it in the fall. And I So before 2023, I hadn't published any books. And now it's 2025, I have 3 books published. It was,
Congratulations.
it was a lot. That was a lot. And I was, other areas of my life were neglected. And I kind of went all in like an obsessed person to get these 3 books done in that amount of time. And so this 4th book, I'm kind of taking my time with it.
Good for you. Good for you. I agree with you 100%. Let me see your beautiful covers again. Did you do the covers?
No, I had a company do my covers, but they're my vision of.
Hmm?
I sent a picture of my mother and told them I wanted the sunglasses and the horses and the Hollywood sign. I don't know if you can see
I
the
can't.
Hollywood sign in her glasses.
Glasses,
And,
yeah.
and then this one, some of it takes place in France.
Paris.
I have the Eiffel. I
You
mean,
got
if
the
I see the Eiffel Tower on a book, I'm buying it.
oh,
Sometimes multiple times I'll get home and I'll find out, oh, I already bought that book. And I just, something about, if I know a book's set in Paris, I love reading about
you're
it.
gonna buy it. You're gonna buy it. And then Belinda's here. She wants to just apologize. She's a little late, but she's here and says hello. Elaine says fabulous book. She has read your book. Okay. I'm looking at the time. We have a treat. You're gonna read to us.
Yes, I am. I was going to read the prologue.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to hand it over to you, but the readers love it. And you're reading the prologue from book 1, correct?
Yes. So this is my grandmother speaking. And I love when a book or a movie starts off with the person in present time and they're kind of reflecting on their life.
Mhm.
So this is Dawn Cameron, June 5th, 2018. 90 years have passed since I first entered this world, a testament to the enduring legacy of my lineage and the indomitable spirit that courses through my veins. As I reflect on a life spanning almost a century, I am reminded of the countless events I've witnessed, the personal battles I've fought, and the triumphs I've celebrated. But let me assure you, dear reader, the fire within me still burns bright, for within this frail vessel resides a mind that refuses to succumb to the passage of time. In many ways, my mind is more alive now than ever before. Inside, I still feel like the spirited 25-year-old I once was, even though sometimes I do walk into another room and forget why I went in there. But hey, that's been happening since my mid-30s. While I've been blessed by the fact that my body has not slowed down, I'm sorry. Well, I've been blessed by the fact that my body has slowed down, but my mind has not. I knew I would live this long. Longevity runs in our blood. Mama was born in 1899, a time when women couldn't even vote. She lived to be 94, and somehow I knew I'd follow in her footsteps. Last year, my family was relieved when I finally stopped driving my cherry red Mustang after a little mishap. But hey, accidents happen, right? Overall, I'm as sharp and stubborn as ever before, maybe even a little wiser.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's fabulous for a debut novel. Brilliant.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. I love listening to authors read their work, and I will pop up some comments as they come in. Colleen Rose has a question about your debut. You did cover a lot of it because it was notes in a box from your grandmother, but she's asking, did the research take you anywhere? Can you tell
Yes,
us where you went to
yes.
do research on every night on every night has a dawn? Sorry.
Okay, so just yes, definitely. It took me, I went to Washington State because I was writing about, I've been there before as a child and I've been there as a young adult, but I'd never been there looking through my grandmother's eyes. And so I decided I always wanted to go to Nia Bay from growing up. She lived across the street from me, my grandmother. And so was the traditional grandmother who you'd go over and she'd be baking family recipes. So our 100-year-old family recipe for coffee cake is in this book. I put
Oh,
a recipe in every book. And I always wanted to go there. And we went just shortly before I published this novel. I went to Nia Bay to see where my grandmother had lived all those years ago. And there is still a um, lighthouse there that was built and that was standing when she lived there. So I think it was built in like the late 1890s, Cape Flattery. And it's just such a rugged, beautiful area and still very remote. And we went to the Macabre, to their museum where you can see how people lived. And, they've been living there for a million years. on that part of the world. So it was just very interesting, and I felt very close to my grandmother. I actually felt like my grandmother was spurring me on and helping me write this novel from another place. I was just like, it was like she would shake me awake at night and be like, "You got them right. I wanted you. You told me you were writing this book and you didn't write it." I just had this feeling of like imagining her in heaven, like saying, "Get on it, girl. Get on it. You can do it."
The spirit was there with you. She was totally there
Definitely.
with you. I want to put this comment up from Lori. It's a long one, but I'm going to put it. My husband's family has a secret where his great grandfather changed the surname from Doolittle to Whitney. This had been a secret for a very long time too. We learned it just after we got married. Maybe we're related to your family member.
Yeah, you could be. I
You
mean,
just
I feel like
never
you go
know.
far back enough, we're probably all related. And a lot of families have these little secrets and things that
Yeah.
people know and they don't talk about. And
Yeah.
um, you know,
The one that came up with me, and I didn't put it in my book, but I've talked about it, is in my teens, we all go through these, want to try something once. And I had my tarot cards read. And
oh,
yeah, this is the first and only time I had it done. And the reader said that there's someone in my family that wasn't your father's daughter. I'm like, excuse me? And I'm the only one in my family with red hair. My father is Irish, but my sisters have blonde hair, mousy blonde hair. So I go home and says to my mother, who's my father?
mm,
I only had red hair. Anyway, it turns out that my mother had a daughter before she met my dad.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
did find us. She did find us a few years. Well, I think I was in my 20s when she found us. Yeah, but yeah, that's what she picked up in the cards. But I never got them read again after that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. My mother-in-law had done tarot cards before her son came out to America, and I guess the person had said he's going to meet or something's going to happen over there that's going to change his life. And she told him the initials. She told her a lot of things, and it all came true. I haven't personally
Wow.
gone, but yeah, I do believe that there is something to certain people, maybe
Yeah,
do have that
you
kind of
pick
a
up
gift.
things, but that freaked me out, and I haven't read since. I don't want to know anything else. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And I tell everyone if you be ready if you do your DNA. If you put yourself out there public where family members and people can get in touch with you, be ready for what you might
Yeah, you
find
never know. You just
and
never
take it
know.
in. If you do find a family member, like maybe keep it to yourself for a little bit before like because I feel like we were in shock when it happened and we just kind of like told everyone and um maybe that wasn't the best way to go about it because there were some people that didn't want the secret. Other older siblings of my mother who I think were like, why are you bringing up this? They didn't like the fact that my mom had a different dad because they're a very close, tight-knit family. And I think some of the older siblings may have known about it and they had never told my mom. And so it just caused a lot of
Feels
conflict
a
in
little
the family.
conflict, but are they okay with it now?
Everybody's great now, and some of the family members that I were most worried about putting this all out there are my biggest supporters and come to all my book signings and have read the book. And
Perfect.
they love how I did it. I think they were nervous when I was writing it of how was I going to present things, but I think when they feel the love that have gone into my books, they're all in a place of love and they're very hopeful. So even though as you live long enough, you're going to go through things. And you have to remain hopeful. And this is how our family got through some very hard times and how, they found joy and kept hope in their lives. So I love that kind of a story.
I love it, and I think part of the reaction was shock, and they
Hmm.
didn't know how to react. So I think that might have had something to do with. I mean, I'm not a
Yeah,
therapist.
we're all closer than ever. But, there was in the beginning, I just kind of wish we would have kept it quiet for like I don't know, 3 months or 6 months, just to kind of digest the information before telling everyone, because we were in shock and then we told everyone else, and then we had some bad reactions, and then it added to, the thing that we were going through and the
Right.
emotions that we were going through. So, but everything happens for a reason. I've
It
been
certainly does. And I'm just popping back to when you read to us the comments, beautiful comments. I love the reading. It sounds so good. And a lot of thank yous. I love listening to authors read their work, but I didn't get down to the comments in time. And then we have Lori, thank you for reading to us. Thanks for reading. A lot of thank yous. I do want to include those. It sounds really good. And then Belinda says, loves recipes in books. Lori says, beautiful reading. I have the same closest with my grandma, and she also lives across the street. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah,
I just wanted, I've had so many people at book signings come up and tell me, like, you wrote my grandmother. Like, how did you write my grandmother? And it just, it feels like a hug from your reading this book is like when you would sit down and your grandmother would tell these stories from when you were younger.
yeah.
And I think I've got that feeling in my book. Um,
My father, who is also an author, he passed away 10 years ago, way too young, but he always wanted to write my grandmother's, my grandmother's story, which he never got around to doing. And that's always been in the back of my mind to write it, because she was like your grandmother in World War II, a lot of history. But again, it's that research. It's that
mhm.
research that
So
scares
I wanted to point out something, and I recommend if you have a family member or someone that has a good story, just
me.
even go and have them like talk into a, your phone and record some of their stories because it's so important to, just get those down and like
It really
preserve
is.
them.
It really
Um,
is.
but I wanted to share for
Mm-hmm.
people who don't know me and my books, I am heavily inspired by music. And so every night has a dawn is a lyric from a song, from the song Every Rose Has a Thorn, Every
Oh,
Night Has a Dawn. And so every chapter of my book is also a song title. So there's a playlist. If you go on Spotify and you search up Rachel Valencourt, um, let me just go to okay. Um, On the Beach with You. So that's a song. I feel like because this book's 1940s, we might
right.
not recognize all the songs, but if I go to this book from the
70s.
70s and I go,
Oh,
Always and Forever is one
yeah.
of the titles. So I don't know, it's just something I do. Live to Tell.
This book
So
has finished.
they kind of coordinate with that era, the song for each chapter. So there's a whole, if you're reading the book, you can go and listen to the playlist while you're reading the book.
Oh, I love
And,
that. What a great idea. That's
and it
brilliant.
was the music I listened to when I was writing the book also. A lot of the songs just, I don't know, I'd be writing a chapter and feel like, what song best like fits this chapter? And I would put that song on. So I've got like Otis Redding, um, I've got Stevie Nicks, all the greats.
All the greats. Yeah, totally. Wow, I love that. Um, you can pick whatever book you want from the trilogy, but what was the hardest part about writing one of these books? Because this is your debut. You did had another career before this, but when it came down to actually sitting down and writing, what did you find the hardest part?
Oh, the hardest part was I became obsessed and I just was like, I'm writing this trilogy. I have this idea. I want to get this all out. I need to get this out of me. And I neglected like so many other areas of my life. Even my family are like, we didn't even see you hardly for a year.
Oh
Like
my goodness.
I became a little too much of a workaholic with it. That was very hard. Once it was coming to me, I was very creative, and I feel like when you have the inspiration and you wake up and you're having all these, I would sleep and dream about these books, and I would write what I was dreaming, and it was just the inspiration was flowing. And so I'd never experienced something like that in my life. I had had blogs and written before, but it hadn't come to me like these books came to me.
And it just
And
followed you.
so I just was like, I got to get this out. This is something's like urging me to get this out. But then publishing the books, just not being, I didn't go to school to be a writer. I did study journalism, but I didn't go to school to be an author. And so publishing them, there's a certain level of anxiety and insecurity that goes into this is something you created and you're putting it all out there for everyone to read and judge. And, it was personal stories for
Yeah.
me. So that was another difficult thing. But I've loved it. I don't look back. This has been such a wonderful and great experience. And it's just been inspirational and it's won a few awards. I wanted to tell you that I talked about kind of feeling like my grandmother was urging me on to write this.
Mhm.
This won the Regal Summit Book Award for historical fiction on my grandmother's birthday. My grandmother,
Congratulations, and for a debut too. That's
For a
phenomenal.
debut. This one's won 2 or 3 awards now, and but the first award I won happened to be
On
on
your
my grandmother's
birthday.
birthday, and so I
Brilliant.
feel like I don't feel like she's mad at me for letting the secret out and
No, 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 no. I love that. That is good. Now you said that you slowed down. Now that the trilogy is out, you're working on book 4. You
yeah.
have slowed down. You're not letting it consume your life. But just give, if you can, just give us a little insight onto like your regular day as an author and what you try and achieve each day.
Well, as an author, I get up and I have to do the social media. If you're an independent author, you have to be doing social media. And I love connecting with people that have read my books, and I love connecting with other book lovers, but sometimes creating the content for Facebook and TikTok and coming up with different ideas to constantly be, it takes a lot of energy, as you know, to go out and post something and be responding to everyone and make sure you're putting your best foot forward and all of that. And so
It's
that is,
it's
it's
hard.
hard. It's a lot. It's as much work as writing the books is,
Hmm.
if not more, because you have if you stop doing it and you're not engaging and you're not on social media, immediately I notice a drop in book sales. And
Yeah.
so you have to constantly be pushing and doing your marketing and social media. So I usually wake up and spend about an hour or so doing that. And then I love to be outdoors. That is my way of recharging. So I usually go take my little Cocker Spaniel and we go for about an hour walk in the morning, after I've had my morning breakfast tea. And that's one thing that carried over from living in England, by having my morning breakfast tea and my eggs on toast and, do social media and then go out for a walk. And I have daughters also. So my daughters are partially homeschooled. So if they need help with something,
Good.
I help them. Um, and then usually after lunch is when I sit down and I will write for about an hour or so.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then my day just, I don't know. People ask me, what do you do all day? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm tired at night and my day goes by quickly and it seems like there's never enough hours, but I think that's part of being a mom. And my husband and I also run up businesses. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
needed in those areas as well. But I'm not involved in the businesses as much as I used to be. I pulled away from them somewhat so that I have time to write, do my social media and all of that. So I'm very minimally involved in that, but sometimes I do still get pulled in.
Wow, fabulous. Um, when you say you sit down to write, do you set yourself a word count, a goal of a word count when you sit down to write, or do you just write until the flow stops?
It varies. If I have a release date coming up and I'm not quite ready, or if I'm like kind of in crunch time, I will set a word count. And when I'm writing like that, it might be like 1,500 words a week or something like that. But if I'm just right now, I'm giving myself time to do the research and write this book, and I'm just like going about it a little bit differently with this fourth book. And so I don't right now set a word count. I just write
Okay.
until I feel like I've done all I can that day.
Oh, you can. Oh, good for you. And you mentioned you do like sometimes write with music in the background.
Yes. So
Can't do
if
that.
it depends on the era, but I usually will put on music that doesn't have words.
Yeah, that's what I can do that. I can do music instrumental, but if it has lyrics, if I hear Stevie Nicks in the background, I'm done. I'll be writing her lyrics. So I
I
just can't.
can do like coffee house rock or things like of that nature, that if it's a little like kind of folk kind of type music with, if there's a singer and lyric and somebody with lyrics. But I can't do my normal music I listen to when I'm like driving around in my car,
Yeah, I guess
if
you.
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
I've
sense.
got like my reading playlist, my reading or my reading and writing playlist.
Excellent. Now, when it comes, you mentioned that you like to go hiking with your dog in the morning. You're an outdoors person. So when you're not writing or researching for your book, what other hobbies do you have that takes you away from your writing?
Well, I love going to the beach and I love the ocean. I live about 15 minutes
And
from
there
the
you
sea.
go. Yeah. Hmm.
So I love doing that. Like I said, I love music. So we go to concerts a lot as a family. We just went to see Oasis, so a British band. Um, that was a lot of fun. And reading, obviously, I read a ton. I love going to the movies, and I love the same. I like to watch movies that are historical fiction, like Pearl Harbor and all those kind of things. But I'll go watch anything really. Yeah, hiking, boating, like boating a lot, and spending time with my family mostly.
You go. Do you have any favorite authors that you can recommend? And the genre, probably historical fiction you read mostly, right?
I do like Kirsten Hanna a lot. I think her books are really good. And I love Anne Rice. A lot of the ones I grew up with. I like Nora Roberts. I think she's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I kind of write all over the place. Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist. I don't know. He's kind of one of my favorites.
All good authors, all good authors. I love them all. I've
And I
read.
read it all. I'm not a book snob. I'll read, like the supermarket novels and I'll
Mhm.
read
If something
heavier.
intrigues me, I'm going to read it. They don't have to be, one of the big authors. I love supporting indie authors. If it intrigues me, I'm going to read it. So, I love that you don't stick to just one genre.
Yes, and I like to read seasonally. So if I'm reading, if it's fall, I like to read things more kind of cozy, and I think a lot of people like to do
Mm,
that. Or
kind of switch
uh,
around. Yeah.
Debbie McComber, I like reading her Christmas books. Um,
I love her. Yes. And then like in the summertime, I do romances a lot. So I go to
mhm, beach,
right.
beach reads. I love anything with travel, anything where you're like a fish out of water, coming of age, all the tropes. I like the enemies to lovers and the
You
love
like it all?
triangles. I,
The
I
only
like it
thing
all.
I don't read is horror. I can't do horror. I want to
I
sleep, so I can't
I
do
I can't do it if it's too involved, but I can dabble into it. It depends. It's a case by case basis.
horror. Yeah, I'm queasy when it comes to that stuff. I really am. Um, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you said something. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
You mentioned that you like the beach, and Karen says, "Can you write when you're on the beach?"
So I can write when I'm on the, probably not write on the sand, but I have a coffee shop that I like. So sometimes if I'm writing at home and I feel like stuck and I'm like, oh, nothing's coming to me, like I'm slogging and like forced to write something. Then I'll just pick up my laptop and I'll go down to the beach, but I'll go to like a coffee shop down there
You
and
don't
set
get any
up.
sand in it. You can't. You don't get any sand in that laptop, right?
No, and it's hard with the sun, sometimes hard to see
It's
the
glad.
screen.
It's
So
glad.
but I like to be close and feel kind of have that ocean air and smell the salt in the air and hear the seagulls. That's all very inspirational.
Yeah, it really is. Now you back to the trilogy. 3 books in the trilogy, of course. Can they be read as standalones, or do you think a reader should read 1, 2, and 3?
They can be read as standalones. I wrote them to be because I don't like that. I personally don't like when you read one and you have to read a whole series. I
Right.
like it. If I read one and I love the writing and everything, I'll go to the next. And my books do have cliffhangers, but you can read each book individually
Mm-hmm.
and finish the book and be fulfilled and not feel, there's nothing in there that you're like, oh my gosh, let me get them. I think you read them and you do think, oh, I wonder what happened next. Or I do kind of leave it. It's a balance of having it enough of a cliffhanger where people are spurred on to read the next book, but then also feel like if I stop here, I feel good. Like it's a good ending.
Okay, so that's good to know that they don't have to read them in order. And your books, I know, are on Amazon, paperback and Kindle, but where else can readers find your books?
So I am also at Barnes and Noble, and my first novel has an audiobook.
Oh,
So
nice.
I did an audio. I hired a voice actress, and we did an audiobook on that one. The sales on the audiobook haven't been fabulous, and so I haven't done an audiobook on the other two, just
It's
because
not cheap.
it was a big expense up front. So I wanted to see how that was gonna, if it was gonna be worth the while. And so far, I haven't had a ton of sales on the audiobook, and so I haven't invested because as an independent author, you're paying for editors and you're paying for book covers, and there's just how much money are you going to put out before you start
Bringing money in. Yeah,
bringing
it's
money in?
narrators are not cheap. It is a huge expense. It really is. And is the book in Kindle Unlimited?
It's not in Kindle Unlimited. I think I'm going to put my first novel in Kindle Unlimited when I release the fourth. book.
Oh, okay. Okay. So they can get the ebook anywhere, because when you're on Kindle Unlimited, you're restricted to just Amazon KU. But with you not being, you're wide, so they can get the, what is it?
Yeah, my
No.
books are wide. And actually, I don't even make money on this book. It's 99 cents for the ebook and 9.99 for the hard copy. So I'm not even really making money on this one. This is just I'm
Gets
putting
you
it out.
gets you into the trilogy.
Yeah, just, I think it's nice when books are not expensive. They've gotten so crazy. You go to the bookstore and they're, $20 for a book. It's a lot. I mean, I
And
understand.
actually over $30, some of them. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so I like to keep my first one as low priced as possible. It's almost
a
free.
good idea. That's a great idea. This has been a fabulous chat. But before we wrap it up, I have one final question for you, and that is, what advice would you give to an aspiring writer that wants to become a published author?
Absolutely, you have to write and just set that time, no matter how long or short. Even if it's 3 days a week for 30 minutes, just have a set schedule where you're writing, and eventually you'll have a book if you keep pursuing that. But you also really have to just block everybody else out, block the chatter out, and don't worry about what anyone else thinks. Don't worry about bad reviews. Don't worry about anyone criticizing or comments people may, oh, you're an author, they don't make me. They're like, you're always going to have naysayers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're passionate about it and it's coming from your heart, like, you should just keep going.
Good
And
for you. Great advice. I always say you got to grow a tough skin in this business.
you definitely do. And I mean, I've had mostly great feedback and great, but I think it's just it's more quieting that voice in your head, like, well, what are they going to think or what are they going to say? And most of the time, it's good things. It's been really good. I haven't had too much
Yeah,
negative.
sometimes our head can be our worst enemy. We're going to think the worst
Yes,
before.
don't be your own worst enemy. There's my
Exactly.
advice.
Exactly. And we are going to do a giveaway. So I want to thank you for that. If you want to tell the readers what the giveaway is.
Yes, you can win a signed copy of Every Night Has a Dawn. If you win the giveaway and you already have this one, I'll send one of the others of your
Oh,
choice.
that's sweet of you. Thank you. And I'm going to be doing my giveaway, which is a $5 Amazon gift card. Most of you know how that works from my author page on Facebook. You have to share this anywhere you want to share it, on your favorite page, on your own page, in your own other groups. Go ahead and share it, but do tag me so I know that you shared it and you're entered into the drawing for a $5 Amazon gift card. The more times you share it, the more times you're entered. This has been a fabulous chat. Thank you so much, Rachel, and I'll
Thank
you
you
have
for having me. I just did want to thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who came and asked questions, or even if you just came to watch. I'm also on TikTok. I'm pretty much everywhere. Pinterest. You can just look me up under Rachel Valencourt, and you can follow me. I'm most active on TikTok, but I have
I have
Facebook
to
groups.
follow you on TikTok. Am I following you on TikTok? I don't remember.
I follow you, and I commented on some of your stuff. I don't know if you're following. I hope you're following me back. I think you are.
I'll double check and make sure. I mean, all these platforms, it's kind of hard to keep track of who we're following and who we're not, but I would definitely make sure I'm following you. Wonderful chat. Thank you so much. And I will get a hold of you when we have a winner. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great night.